So, hello, everybody, and welcome to Rosie Talks. I am so excited about today's topic. My name is Ebeth, and I am the coordinator of special projects here at the Rosie Network. And we are going to be talking with some amazing folks today about the mental health of an entrepreneur. We're going to be talking about how to spot burnout as an entrepreneur and how to address your emotions through intentional self-care. I am delighted to introduce our special guest, Carole Turner with Psych and Dania Addison, who is with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And so just to do a little bit of housekeeping, I know that we've got some folks that are here in our very own Zoom room with us. So please feel free as we're talking. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat, and then we can try to address questions as we're going. We want this to be a very easy, breezy sort of conversation. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. So, Carole, I would love for you to introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about Psych and what you are all about.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. I am a military spouse of an active duty Marine, still here at Camp Pendleton. And I offer that because I have so many of my friends over the years have been entrepreneurs. I have seen that. I have worked in hybrid workspaces and worked independently, different ways, but that idea of entrepreneurship has been very, very instrumental. I've seen a lot of that firsthand in my life, as many military spouses create and run their own businesses on location. So I'm super excited that you all are here, that the Rosie Network is supporting this, because I think this is a fantastically important topic. I currently work for Psych, which is an organization that teaches about military culture. And I offer that to you because we all know that when you are more culturally aware about somebody, have that information, you can more effectively engage with, support, you have a more genuine connection with them, right? So we all know that. And we also know that cultural awareness is a continuum. And one of the things we struggle with in the military world is recognizing that there is a very distinct culture in the military connected community, which there absolutely is. And we try and take our learners from being aware about military culture all the way to the point that they are completely culturally competent so that they can affect better outcomes for military communities that they support and engage with. That always sounds like a lot of techno speak, right? And so I want to give you a specific example where this really matters. Our organization was founded around the idea that every veteran that was struggling with the many years of war that we've been at 10 years ago, almost nearly 10 years ago when we started, they all wanted a mental health provider that understood them. Well, there really were not enough mental health providers that had been veterans to meet the need. So we began around the idea of training mental health providers about military culture so that they could more effectively engage with and support and treat their clients. And so we've extrapolated that out now to many different communities, and we actually train many corporations for hiring and employee retention, higher education, where we see our veterans turn up and our military family members turn up with their GI Bill benefits. So we're in a lot of different spaces, and we are sharing the good word about military culture in ways that will benefit military connected communities. So I'm very proud of what I do. I didn't understand it at first. I thought, wow, but I realized because I'm right in it, it's there. So today, I think I've got a lot around the programs that we support on employment, and I can help provide some resources for the entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to learn more. And our next expert that we have with us today is Dania Addison. And Donia, I'm just going to let you jump right in and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Sure. My name's Dr. Dania Addison. I am a social worker at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. I am also a combat veteran. I came back in about 2003. And this topic is really important to me because I actually got services from the VA. And I always say I would have never been able to become a social worker if I wasn't helped through mental health services at the VA myself. So this topic is very important to me. I think that we have to do more to destigmatize asking for help. And as Carole talked about with cultural, military cultural thinking about I myself, it took a lot for me to ask for help. So I know it's ingrained in us as military personnel or previous, veterans to not ask for help or to, keep pushing, to suck it up and drive on, drink water and take an 800 milligram Motrin and you'll be fine. So what I hope to accomplish today in our talk is to really expand on how we think about taking care of ourselves and recognize that we all conceptualize self-care differently and think about it differently. And as the entrepreneurs are building their businesses and want best practices around self-care, for them to look at cultural competence, as Carole said, and how to do that. I would also like to talk about just what are the burnout symptoms and what are things to look for. And, it sounds like Carole and I will kind of feed off of each other. These are some signs and symptoms, and these are some things that you can do, but then these are some resources that you may have. So I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate the invite. I would not call myself an expert though.
Oh, I am sure you are. Yes, you are. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is such an important topic. And, as, we're in sort of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're also, we're at a heightened stress period right now. As we're coming, we've been dealing with all sorts of things in the news and with the pandemic and that sort of thing. So I think maybe the first question would be, what is burnout and how do you define it? I love that. I think that's a great jumping off point. So.
Sure. So burnout involves 3 dimensions. It's depersonalization. So kind of stripping away of ourselves, and then emotional exhaustion, just being completely exhausted emotionally, and then not really seeing progress in the work that we do. So if we kind of apply this to the entrepreneur, it may look like dreading to go to work, or it may look like physical symptoms of headaches or stomach aches, or not seeing progress in the work that you're doing, or not finding yourself being as excited about the work that you do. Again, going back to not being able to see that progress, you may feel like you haven't gotten as far along as you want to be. And that might be something, that might be a sign. And then I think something that's really important is just irritability. Sometimes if you just find yourself, losing your patience a little bit more, that is a sign of burnout. Just avoiding things that you normally like to do, that you're not really finding joy or benefit from like you would have. Those are really important signs for burnout.
I have to say, that's fantastic. It's lovely to hear that summary. And I feel like we could all raise our hands at some point in the room. Have you ever felt burnout? 100%. All those symptoms you've mentioned, I've been there, right? And I think we've all been there. And I think we've all been there most recently during this pandemic timeframe. So I'm actually not in an entrepreneur position right now, but I could make a case that most of our military spouses and veterans, it's entrepreneur-like, just being in the job market and finding jobs and finding your way and navigating around all the different barriers that we have to entry to the workforce with location and such. So I think that's a great starting point to be able to identify it. And I had some thoughts on when you feel yourself, now that you've so succinctly identified that, when you feel yourself, what can you do? And I would like to offer, we've got a lot of resources at Psych Armor around building programs such as ERGs, like employee relations groups, and creating a veteran-friendly work environment, or a military spouse-friendly, or a hiring program. So I know that those are like different than entrepreneurship, but the same principles apply. And I'd like to offer that the same things that we've seen there in those spaces would work here. And so knowing that networking is very, very important, I think it behooves entrepreneurs to create those networking opportunities, and you have to do it. So there's not going to be a built-in employee relations group when you're out on your own, starting your own business, or when you're hiring your small staff, but it's still important for you as a business owner and an entrepreneur to create those opportunities for mentoring, for coaching, and for peer support. And I think all of those are going to be very crucial to combating what you see as to maintaining wellness in the entrepreneurial workplace. And that can look like a lot of different things. I have some thoughts on where you can reach out for those types of things, but it does take that little bit of initiative, and it's hard to find that initiative when you're already spending all your time trying to grow your business, right? But I have talked to friends who have had small groups, maybe not of competitor businesses, but small groups of entrepreneurs, little friend groups. And those are the cheerleaders, or those are the people they can lean on for advice. And I would offer that creating those groups, having those connections. I think one of the things in the entrepreneurial workspace is that you're alone, or you feel like you're out there alone. So I think that that's just a huge thing, to create those networking. And I have some ideas as we move forward on and how and where you can find some of those spaces.
I love that so much. I know for me as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure other people can identify with this. You know, we do have the lonely entrepreneur like sort of syndrome. Like we feel like we're all alone at times. And I love that you're encouraging the networking, because it's so important. I have heard that sort of idea with mentorship as well. As a mentor, described as a mentor sandwich, that everyone should have a mentor sandwich, where you have somebody who mentors you, who you are, peer with, like you said. And I think that it is great. And particularly in a period where we feel so isolated maybe. And now we're coming into, we're starting to go back out into the world, and there may be some social anxiety involved with that as well. And so, that's great. So as far as self-care goes, what does that look like? And how would you, I know we were talking, it's different for different people. So what are some suggestions for self-care in this, once you've identified that you are in burnout stage?
Dania, did you want to go first? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, the first thing, of course, the social worker in me says, let's try not to get burnout,
right,
which is the point of self-care, right?
Yeah.
And as you were talking, Carole, I just wrote down professional self-care. With that networking, we have to think about it in terms of professional and personal self-care. So there's some things that I'm going to do for myself, but then one of the biggest things that I do as doing direct care with veterans, I turn my phone off, when I'm finished. When my day is finished, like that has been my go-to professional self-care thing, is to set up parameters around my day of, okay, I'm going to stop at this time. Now, everyone can't do that. And I really understand that, especially with an entrepreneurial, you're going to put in a lot of work in the beginning and not be able to necessarily always have those parameters. But I think it's important to recognize that professional self-care is just what you were talking about earlier, is creating those networks, especially during the pandemic. We've had so much isolation, and I would imagine that people have also tweaked and pivoted their business plan, right, and their business practices. And so it's trying to figure out how can we still stay connected to one another, because I think that is huge in anything, Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's right. The connectedness is the part I was talking about before, right? Like to make sure you still got those connections. And I I love that you called it the sandwich, because you have to, I really think that it's like you need almost three different groups. You need a group of like-minded peers that you can go to for advice, but then you also maybe need people in your own industry that you can share with, and then maybe a mentor. And those are three different branches of connectedness, but they form a nice triad. And I love what you said there, Donia, about setting boundaries, like you turn off your phone. The one thing that I will say from my friends that have been in entrepreneurial business, or even me, because I'm a fractional employee in a hybrid workplace, and again, I think the same rules apply. I think you have to set those boundaries early, and then you can expand beyond them in a way that is, well, this is just a special exception, but it's not always expected, right? And I've heard many of my friends in this space talk about the idea that set those boundaries very, very early. These are my working hours. You can always make an exception, or if you return a call after that time, say, you were such a valued client or whatever, but so you don't get into the burnout, set the boundaries early. I had one friend, I like to tell the story, who obviously worked from home, but would get dressed, drive to Starbucks, get a Starbucks, and then drive home, and then start the workday. And it was in the exact same space where they'd been living, but they needed that time out of the house to actually physically leave the house, leave the building, get their coffee, come back. And that allowed them to set the boundary around an actual workday, but they had to create that themselves, right? So it was kind of an interesting twist to me. I think everybody's, it's very important. We talk a lot about hustle culture for entrepreneurs, and that means like almost being available all the time or always responding right away to people. I think message right out there, right from the beginning, I will not be responding after whatever time, or however you want to define that. Try and avoid it. Yeah.
I think that's so. I think y'all are hitting the nail right on the head, because I know when looking back now, I wish I had done some of those things in the beginning. And I found for me as an entrepreneur, I actually became more successful once I started to put those boundaries in, because I feel like some of my clients then recognize that my time is important too. And so I was a little bit even more difficult to reach. So, there's that was that added benefit. So, yeah, I think that that's fantastic. I know and too, as an entrepreneur, we are just afraid of missing out on anything. And particularly like, as you're beginning, you're in the weeds. There's so many rabbit holes that you go down. And so, how do you prevent that overwhelm? Like, what would be suggestions for like that fear of missing out and just being compelled to work all the time?
Well, so one thing that I would say as far as self-care goes is really like, I wrote a blog post about rediscovering self-care. So understanding that what you need today may not be what you need tomorrow or 5 years from now. And so being open to figuring out what you need to replenish yourself, what nourishes you. And so I think that's the first step, is just really understanding yourself, and then understanding your business needs, understanding what it takes to do what you're doing, and how you can get those breaks. So for me, one of my biggest self-care things is physical wellness. And so I used to never like to work out, ever. Hated it, just thought it was just awful. I didn't like it. And probably about 5 years ago, I hired a personal trainer just to, get my health going. And I fell in love with it. And now it's something, if I don't do it a couple of times a week at least, I feel so different. And I can say to myself, something's different about me this week. And then I can look at my schedule and see, oh, well, you didn't go to kickboxing this week. So that's what, and so it's just really knowing what is good for you and what is going to help you, continue to do the work that you really love. Because I think if you're an entrepreneur, you love what you had this idea, you own it. It embodies everything in you. So to continue to do that work, you kind of have to really continue to grow and learn what works for you.
Right.
I love that split of talking about personal well-being and wellness, and then how that impacts the professional well-being and wellness, and how hard it is to make that division, particularly when it's something you love, like you're talking about, because entrepreneurs, right? They're obviously doing what they love. And so they're energized by that, but you still have to make time for other outlets, other aspects of yourself, so that you can come back and then give it your all. So that fear of missing out thing, that actually brings to mind something. The interesting thing about entrepreneurs is that it's very competitive, right? And so you have other people that are maybe trying to do the same things, and you view them as competitors. And I want to just offer that there might be some mental health wellness that comes from the idea of embracing kind of a culture of abundance. I know that some of my friends that have been in entrepreneur spaces have develop relationships with people that would be considered competitors, but they can throw their overflow business onto them, right? Like, so, and then there's got to be someone that you can refer to when you can't handle a client or take it. And that also is going to then allow you to have needed downtime. So I would encourage relationships where, with, perceived competitors, as it were, find someone that you can kind of ally with to cover each other, to send referrals back and forth. I am a big one on the culture of abundance. I don't know if many of you all have read that book, like The Go Giver, right? And when you do that, when you reach out there with an attitude like that, a generosity, even in the business space, it definitely benefits you. And I think that is one way to kind of maintain your own wellness. And then, by the way, and to go back to the FOMO, to tie it all together, you've now got a friend in the industry. So you don't have to you're getting the feedback on current trends and topics and issues and barriers from somebody else who's right in that space. So you're just kind of sharing the load. And by the way, let's not be afraid to delegate. Once you start growing your business, just because it's your baby, we all know how hard it is to let somebody watch our kids, and when you're an entrepreneur, that's your business. But you've got to learn to delegate, and there is going to be that fear of missing out. But you're trusting and empowering those people that are working with you by doing that, I think.
I think that's great. And I know for me, obviously I work with the Rosie Network, but I'm also a personal wardrobe stylist, and we are, my industry can be notoriously competitive with each other. But I was lucky enough to find a community where, they're very supportive of community over competition. And exactly what you said, we were able to refer to one another. If we're able to find, I have a client in California that needs help, then I know I have somebody there, or somebody in Virginia. But we can collaborate, and it does help when you have that sort of like synergy. It can actually make you stronger, and you feel very empowered. So I love that so much. So now, what about when, thinking about all of the responsibilities and, what happens when you are completely overwhelmed? And you realize that your plate is full, and you can't attend an event, or maybe you're not able to meet with a client. What are some recommendations for self-care around that, and dealing with the reality that you cannot be all things to all people?
Yeah, I think the first thing with this is to really, again, it goes back to intentionality of like figuring out what prioritizing, right? Like that's a big thing for me, is figuring out what's most important. And sometimes we don't like to think about it because it feels like everything's important, right? But there is a reality that there's something that you just absolutely need to do. And then there's some things that we can realistically get off our list, right? So I think that's the start of it, is to just figure out what is your priority and what is needed. And that's self-care in itself. Just doing that, just figuring out what is most important and what do I need to do. And then I think as far as this goes back to boundaries as well, right? It is transmitting and speaking those boundaries to our clients, that I value you. I value this. I value the relationship. I value, and this is what I need for today. I'm not going to be able to attend this event, but I can send information, or I can, in the virtual world nowadays, you may even be able to do a video message, and that might stand in for, you having to physically be there. So I think it's just getting innovative and trying to figure out what you can do to kind of meet those things, but also deciding what you can give a little bit on.
Mm-hmm. Those are really great points. I think it does definitely come back to the boundaries discussion, but I will also say, I know there's a unique burden on entrepreneurs because you are your business. You are the face of the business. You are representing. So you're your own brand identity, for instance, and you're always out there. I would offer, I didn't actually say what I do at Psych Armor. I said I work for Psych Armor. I told you about Psych Armor, told you I'm a military spouse, told you about my entrepreneurial experiences. I am actually doing strategic communications. That's what I do for Psych Armor. And this is, in my mind, a strategic communications question. And what I would say in answer to this, when you can't attend something and when you can't be there or show up, first of all, to Donia's point, it's perfectly okay to set boundaries, to say no. But I think the way you message your no, I would offer to be authentic and transparent at all times. Everybody understands you're not going to be able to do everything at any given time. And you are going to have to turn down, you're going to have to turn down some business, some clients, some meetings, some opportunity for representation. But in being your authentic, transparent self at all times, you can, people respond to that. And just, and people value that too. And you might even be empowering somebody to say, well, my plate is full right now because I'm also managing children, or I'm also, I'm also a spouse, or my husband's deployed, or I am in school, I'm working to further myself, or I'm training new staff, or whatever way. It's a message of growth, but it's authentic and real, and people really respond to that. So you're absolutely, for mental health wellness, you can't do it all. And I think in the way that you message it, and I love your idea too, send a video message. Let people know that this still matters to them, or I hope to be able to do it next year. Or maybe sometimes just a very fair, this doesn't align with my mission or my business plan, or it's not my area of expertise. Just be authentic and real. So that's how I kind of took that question. I don't know if that's the way you meant for us to kind of go.
Yes, no, I love that. I love that so much. I remember the first time that I had somebody set that sort of boundary around something I was doing, and I thought,
good for them.
I would love to be able to do that. And then I realized I can do that. It is within my power because I write the rules, right?
Yeah. And by the way, if you're not going to do it well, then it doesn't represent you or your business or whatever you're growing well. So that's another, you have to take that into consideration. You hate to say no to this, but if your plate is so full, you can't do it well. You don't want to be out there representing you or your business poorly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Well, you brought up you hit on something earlier about a sort of outsourcing. I think you were kind of hinting. How do y'all feel about when is the right time to outsource? Is this a form of self-care? Like, any thoughts around that?
In terms of entrepreneurship, I would say that's the other word for that is growth, right? And so it's going to be a roller coaster. It always is, right? With any type of entrepreneurship, but think of it as growth, as developing new relationships, partnerships. Putting, whether that's training new employees. I have one spouse I just was at an event with recently, and she's taken her business, which was just her home fitness. And now she's got a whole bunch of trainers working underneath of her. And there's a level of trust with that, right? Because now they're also out there representing you and your brand identity and everything, but that is growth. So I think you have to be open to that. And it's hard in terms of letting that go, but boy, that's a huge mental health wellness thing to know that it's not always just all on you, right?
Yeah. And I think, when we're talking about sort of like work-life balance for an entrepreneur, like a lot of times we think, and particularly for someone who's new in business, when we think of outsourcing, perhaps we're thinking hiring a virtual assistant or hiring an accountant, but it may be having someone come in and help fold the laundry while we are doing something else so that we can focus on our business for a minute. So, outsourcing can be all sorts of different avenues that I feel like can help contribute to our self-care and yet take us a step further towards our personal goals.
You all are meeting a little bit of my personal self-care live right now, which is
I love it so much.
This is part of my mental health wellness, is a work environment where I can have a pet there. So sorry for that. Yeah.
Oh, no worry. We love it. We love it here. So, so when we have somebody who has reached burnout and they know they need self-care, but they've just sort of lost their motivation. At that point, what are some resources or some thoughts around like how do we self-motivate at that point, or who do we reach out to?
Would you like me to start with that one? Is that okay?
Either? Yes.
Okay. One of the things I would like to suggest is to find a mentor who can be the cheerleader, the coach that can guide you through. And I think this goes back to your previous question about outsourcing. I think we all have to recognize that we're not going to be gifted at every single aspect of running a business. We might be really good at, the cake decorating, but maybe running the books isn't good. So outsourcing something that you're not necessarily good at is absolutely going to contribute to your mental health wellness and your ability to be successful in the workplace. The thing that stresses you is where you want to look for an opportunity for outsourcing. I wanted to offer a couple different places where I know there's you can get and find guidance. I don't know how many people listening today or on this call are what communities you're part of, but I do know that the Spouse Education and Career Opportunity Office through the VA they actually offer mentoring and coaching that you can sign up through. That's the SECO website through Military OneSource or MySECO. And you can sign up for a coaching session with an entrepreneur coach, or a regular coach. I mean, so there's all these types of things. So that kind of answers the outsourcing question, but then also that question of when you reach that point of absolute burnout, I think that's the time you kind of need a cheerleader. Somebody that can look at an outside eye and say, and I think you need to identify, and I'm sure you're going to address this, that identify what is the aspect that's bringing you down. Because for me, it would be the accounting. Like I'd absolutely find a small business accountant and have them run that side of it. But I think you touched on this earlier, Donia, about the idea that identifying and tracking what are set goals and then what are set tasks and really having a handle on that. So that would be my thought on that.
So I would also, just because I have a clinical background, I would think about things in terms of, what are you experiencing? What symptoms of burnout are you experiencing? Are you having some physical things that are going on? Like, have you had increased headaches? Like, is it time for you to, if you think about self-care, to literally make an appointment with a doctor? Have you missed your yearly physical or, whatever that might be? But then to also think about your mental health and to not, again, this is mental health awareness, to not be afraid to see a therapist. I'm a therapist. I see a therapist. And so one of my biggest things is to destigmatize that. And I think we do that by faces saying, hey, I have anxiety. I suffer from depression, but that doesn't keep me from doing the things that I love and the things that I want to do. So just because you might be experiencing these things doesn't mean that you're not capable, that you're not, that you can't continue to do what you're doing. However, it may be time to take a pause and to really look at, what am I experiencing? What symptoms do I have? And that, I think, kind of determines what resource that you might need at that point, whether it's physical or mental, or again, going back to the connection and the mentor, like just having someone that my granny used to say this. She was a very smart woman. She used to always say, sweet cake. That's what she called me. Sweet cake, you have different talks for different people. You don't tell everybody everything, but have that person that you can talk to about what's going on, whether it's your business or it's your personal health or even mental health. I think the more that we talk to our friends and colleagues about, within reason, sharing parts of ourselves so that we don't feel so alone, because as you all said earlier, we've all experienced burnout. I wouldn't say a guru, but I am very intentional about my self-care. But I still, right now at this moment, I work for the VA with the homeless population, and it is a very difficult population. Substance use, severe mental illness, and I'm a veteran. So, that makes it even harder to sometimes to work with a veteran and see my fellow veterans suffer so much. And so even I burn out, when you kind of become numb to problems or things that, that's a sign of burnout. And I myself have to look at, okay, take a day off. Just take a day off. And I think as entrepreneurs to look at, to not get into this place of everything is your problem, someone else's failure to plan is now your crisis, that kind of thing. So I really think that it goes back to just knowing what you need and recognizing those symptoms within yourself and then figuring out what the best resource is.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to offer a Psych Armor resource that has actually kind of worked for me, which is great. And it is not in place of either mental health, professional mental health services and a counselor or someone to talk to, because that absolutely, I'm all about destigmatizing that. And then of course, taking the day off, also fantastic. And I think, by the way, for entrepreneurs as they build businesses, be mindful of offering those benefits to your staff as you begin to build your business. And consider yourself one of your staff, right? So that the same courtesy that you'd give to your staff about mental health wellness breaks, give to yourself. But the one resource that I just love, and it's a quick fix, we have a program called Mantram. And these courses are free on our website, and it takes you through Mantram training. So a lot of people hear mantra, and this is actually Mantram, just, potato, but it is the idea of meditation. And this is some coursework we created around a mental health wellness thing that can be done in the workplace, a short term, and it is a guided meditative practice. And maybe I've known several friends that have incorporated this into their daily life in the middle of their workday to kind of reset and refocus. And here's the thing, I'm always a big one, and you talk about what things your grandmother or your parents say. We always say, throw something at the wall, see if it sticks, the big spaghetti, like kind of thing. And Mantram isn't going to work for everybody. I have found it does work for me and for some people, and that type of like a daily meditative thing. It's sitting there on our site. You can Google it. It's one of the wellness courses that we offer. And I don't know. I like it. It's worked for me. I think it's great.
No, I love that. And I like your point that because I worked for an organization that they didn't call it counseling or therapy. It was coaching. Because there was stigma just around the word. So sometimes people aren't ready, even for that. So I love that. I love that, there's a different resource, and therapy is not necessarily everyone doesn't want to do that, or they might not be ready for it, or it might not be needed. But to have a great resource like that, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important too to have that sort of resource. I know, we are in a mental health crisis in the US, and I know how difficult it is to get help, to try to find a provider these days.
Correct.
And, it may be weeks before you can get in to see someone. And if that, it's kind of like dating. If that person isn't right, then you need to find another person. So to have those other types of resources in tandem with, when you recognize that you need to, a little helping hand, I think is so incredibly important. So that's a great resource, for sure. I know I have, when I've gotten ready to do a big presentation for something, I've used an app before that has like a meditation, and I was totally opposed to this sort of thing, and I thought, well, nothing is working. I'll just try it, and lo and behold, it was extremely helpful. So breathing and all of the things. So
yeah, we had it in our office that somebody would put it on the calendar once a week, and you could log into a Google Meet and you could choose to go. It's completely optional, but it was a 15-minute guided meditative practice that you could do, just kind of a nice option. So some part team building, and partly just an opportunity or an offering, and allowing time and saying that, as a workplace environment, we support your mental health and we support you taking a little bit of break in the middle of the day so you can come back recharged and refreshed. Right. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody is immune to mental health challenges. I mean, and like we were talking about in the beginning, that just in today's climate in general, I think people are just reaching burnout, and people are just tired. And so recognizing that and trying to come up with something to combat it, I think is amazing. So when we're so out in the public, I know this can be a challenge. Social media is so big for entrepreneurs, that sort of thing. So, and I know that we sometimes, not only are we dealing with competitors, but there's also that sort of like a potential bullying, or, that sort of thing. What are some thoughts around like how to protect yourself and your self-care around that sort of thing?
I feel like this is probably more your question, but I have a specific example that just occurred to me. Is that okay?
Yes, great.
My neighbor has a business, and she has a home business, and it's thriving and it's wonderful. She puts out a great product. And, but what she's burned out by are, number one, social media and comments on social media. And then also the responses, the kind of customer servicey kind of responses, and having to, and I do think in some sense, you really have to develop like a thick skin, who you are, what your brand and your product are, and you just have to know that's coming, and be able to kind of shake that off a little bit around negative comments. But the other thing that she did is she outsourced her social media. She just, has another spouse that she knows who takes the photos and puts up and responds to comments. And sometimes you don't always want to read all the comments. So you have to set your personal boundaries for yourself, and then also kind of go into it with a little bit of awareness around that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you basically said everything I was thinking is knowing who you are, knowing who your business is, and not putting stock into, there's always going to be haters, right? There's always going to be people that the naysayers, or just the negative Nancy's, like it's always going to be. And so you just can't, you have to try not to let that bother you or deter you. But I love outsourcing social media. And then that kind of prevents a little bit of having to get too tangled in it. But if you can't, I mean, I think you could turn off notifications so you're not getting those constant,
That's the boundary.
they say there's some psychology around those dings that our brain says we have to go look. And so, yeah, I think just simple things like that to help yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I feel like, social media is such a beast, and it is sort of one of those things that it can become a job itself just to manage your social media, like trying to deal with the algorithm changes. And now they want you to do more reels, which involves, if you're somebody who isn't wanting to dance in front of the camera and act and do all those things, you're just a static picture, then that causes all sorts of additional stress. So the idea of outsourcing, I think, is fantastic. And limiting those notifications. You were going to say something, Carole.
Yeah, I thought of a resource that just came up for me. Through Psych, we did some consulting with Google on a new site called Belonging. And I do know one of the tabs on their new Belonging site is actually a veteran tab, and lots of resources. And I know they have actual resources on creating marketing and media campaigns for entrepreneurs. As I was perusing that, kind of saw that in there. And I know that a lot of these organizations, there's organizations you can get free LinkedIn premium accounts. That actually is also through Seco. There's a lot of places out there where I would look to. That wouldn't be my specialty. And the reason my friend outsourced it is because that other person, one step removed from the business, didn't take it as personally and could say, oh, well, thanks for your feedback, or we appreciate you as a customer, whereas sometimes you just want to go, are you kidding? And you've got that, that extra barrier. So I'm kind of making that point there, but there are some great resources out there about creating marketing and social media engagement plans and things, resources that you can take advantage of. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think too, I know for me, I have found that, when I get overwhelmed, I forget, I have to remind myself what my mission and vision is for my business. And so that for me is sort of a form of self-care, because it redirects me back to my primary focus. Mm-hmm. So I actually keep it where I can see it, so that, I'm like, okay, get focused, get back. So, and when I think too, when we are, for some of us, we're multi-passionate entrepreneurs. And so we do have so many different areas that we want to go into. So using tips and tricks maybe to focus also can be helpful.
I just want to say, and I know we're probably nearing the end here, I just want to throw out there that I have such mad respect for entrepreneurs, for all of you that are watching or engaged or in the Zoom room, because I always say, and I say it to my own kids, create the life you want. And man, to the entrepreneurs out there, you are doing it. You're already on that first stage to mental health wellness because you've put your ideas and your enthusiasm and your passion out there. And that is incredibly admirable. I have a lot of respect for it, for those that take that big leap into entrepreneurship. But that doesn't mean it's not hard. Yeah.
So do we have any questions in the audience? Does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask any sort of questions? So, and if y'all have anything else you would like to add, I know the whole idea of destigmatizing, mental health issues is so important, and I think it's important that we do talk about, the authenticity and the reality of it. It's stressful. It is stressful, and so we do need to take care of ourselves. Ladies, do you have any other tidbits that you like to share with us?
Donia, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning of the conversation, Donia had been pointing out different cultural biases. And I think that also defaults back to regional too, where I feel like a lot of us are living in the city. We might have to move into a place that is not as abundant with people. Where how do we go about leaning on someone or relying on someone if we don't have like that? There is a distance gap, something to that effect.
That's a good question.
And
I think
like you want to put the social media down, but also like you need
Right.
interaction, but the nearest person's 40 minutes away. Like it's a real
Right.
thing. It's a real thing that a lot of people do have to go through, especially like we're entrepreneurs and military spouses and veterans, and we got to travel and we've got to move and we've got a PCS. So is there anything that you guys could have to offer, something on that side of the topics?
Like how to find a networking group? Is that what you're like, how to network with people and how to find our community maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, I would look on Facebook or some of the other social media platforms for like-minded entrepreneurial groups, maybe in the same business. But again, one of the things I offered at the beginning, we were talking about 3 different types of connective type groups. I think that you should also look for people that are other just entrepreneurs, but then also people within your own industry, and try and to create those support groups. Try and find them online on the social media platforms or through some of the large organizations that are supporting that. Because I do think that interaction is absolutely 100% crucial. It's the old, I mean, honestly and truly, I have a friend who's an entrepreneur, a good friend of mine, and he went and joined in the Lions group. And he was kind of in his community, he was kind of one of the younger generation of entrepreneur business people to join, and he jokes he's got a lot of seniors on the Lions Club board, but it's been incredibly beneficial to him. They've thrown a lot of business his way. He's made business relationships, and it's an in-person thing. And I think a lot of us forget about some of those old models that worked for many years for those in-person things. So to your question there, Jennifer, I would say, reach out into your actual community around you, even if it doesn't seem like it aligns with your business mission. It's that culture of abundance around networking that's always going to be helpful.
I definitely feel that way, and I know I'm currently in Rhode Island, so I'm on a small little area that closes down in the wintertime. And so there is not a whole lot of things going on. And then, volunteer opportunities are few and far between. So that's so true. Finding those groups online can be helpful. And then you may not, when you're looking at a group online, you may find that there's actually somebody from your community there. I had joined a group, and there was someone in Portsmouth, which is like 5 minutes from here, just by happenstance. So you never know where you're going to meet those people. So I think that's great. Well, we are going to wrap up here shortly. Do you have anything that you would like to close with? How can we find y'all? So Donia, did you want to go first?
Sure. As far as finding me, I will put my information in the chat. I would just say thank you all so much for having me. And this was a great conversation. Hopefully we can do more. And just to really go back to, I read an article that said 30% of founders reported depression and 50% reported burnout. So this is, this is real. This is happening. And self-care, while is not a magic fix, it is something that can help decrease those rates. So don't be afraid to reach out, use your networks, use people, like you said, mentors, use those people to help you get through whatever you're going through at this moment. And I will put my email and phone number in here.
Yeah, and I'll do that as well. I'll add my email. Love to hear from anybody. I will say I love the fact that we divided that idea of personal self-care and wellness and professional. But with the entrepreneur, we kind of recognize the way that merges and blends. So I would say to make sure and to recognize that self-care can be as big as setting boundaries and time, but it can be as small as, like, for me, I don't like fluorescent lights, so I use lamps. I mean, remember to think of self-care. You can do little things throughout your day. I have a habit where I water plants, because just stepping away from my desk for a moment or whatever is something that is self-care for me and clears my head. So, take that time to map out and identify what self-care looks like for you. And then it's all about routines, right? And creating those habits and routines, and self-care is a habit or a routine that you need to stick with. You do kind of have to work at it, but there's outsized benefits. So, I'll put my contact information. Love hearing from everybody, and super excited to have been part of this.
Oh, well, thank you all so much. I mean, this has just been great. And I love the tips that you shared. And it is such an important topic. So y'all definitely reach out to these amazing women and take advantage of their resources. Before we close, I'm just gonna just make a few announcements here too. We are, as many of you know, the Rosie Network, we are all about supporting entrepreneurs, military spouse and veteran entrepreneurs. And so we do this with our no cost service to CEO program, which is an 8-week entrepreneurial mentorship and training program, and we are accepting applications currently. So I know that we're going to put the link to that up for you to apply, but we are interviewing currently for that. We also will be having two cohorts starting over the summer and then one in the fall. We also have a kidpreneur camp, which is coming up. So we like to make it a family affair. And so the camp will be running in June, from June 21st to June 30th. The application date for that closes on June the 14th. So just want to make you aware of that, but it's a really great program and a great way to take, our kids from, the lemonade stand to starting and promoting their own businesses. So, it's pretty amazing. We also had talking about families in honor of that, our Military Entrepreneur magazine just came out last month, and the recent edition is geared towards military families and entrepreneurs. So you can learn more about Kids Camp there. And then finally, our August edition of Me Mag will be coming out, and that will feature the sixth annual, this is a mouthful for me to say, the 6th annual National Veteran and Military Spouse Entrepreneur Awards, which are absolutely amazing. And so you can begin to vote for your favorite entrepreneurs and the ones that really and truly inspire you. June the 11th, we have is an AAFES Shopping Expo at Fort Meade in Maryland. And June 18th, we'll be doing the same, another AAFES Expo at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. So all sorts of really exciting things. We're looking for vendors and volunteers for both of those events. You can hear my Roomba. That's my, can you hear my Roomba in the background? I can't stop it. So anyway, that's how I outsource. So you can certainly reach out to the rosienetwork.org, contact at the rosienetwork.org if you would like more information. But with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you both so much for being here today. And I hope that I get to see you again in the near future. So
A lot of fun. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.